Você quis dizer CRM Zummit? Ah, entendi. Zummit, com Z. Vamos começar do início. Durante séculos, a Índia foi celebrada como o berço de uma cultura vibrante, que resistiu ao tempo e atravessou fronteiras, mesmo lá no chamado Sul Global. Terra de espiritualidade profunda, de ciência antiga e de inovação.
We want people to be, in a sense, their own inner gurus, listen to their own inner selves, and I can just only act as a catalyst. Maybe listen to your own voice, like, does this make you happy? This way of thinking, this way of integrating this, being contented, does it make you happy? And those are, then people realize it, then they start practicing. Then I won't be needed to preach to anyone anymore. And that's how we scale it. Really, the scaling principle is to render myself irrelevant to this or unnecessary to this, so that it gets automatically practiced. And that's really the idea.
Mas o que a Índia tem a ver com CRM Zummit? Foi lá que nasceu uma das tecnologias mais avançadas do planeta. Talvez você já o conheça, talvez ainda não. O que importa é que essa visão inspirou um time no Brasil a ousar. Fazer diferente, sonhar mais alto e reinventar a forma como pensamos sobre negócios, tecnologia e o futuro da inovação. Ok, tudo bem. No CRM Zummit, a experiência de conteúdo é pensada para maximizar o aproveitamento de cada participante. As trilhas simultâneas foram criadas para atender perfis diferentes, desafios e momentos da jornada profissional. Assim, cada participante monta sua própria experiência, escolhendo os temas que fazem mais sentido para a sua carreira e para os desafios da sua empresa. Em vez de assistir a sessões genéricas, você encontra profundidade e foco. Hunter, para quem abre mercados e encontra os primeiros sinais. Pré-vendedores. Closer, para quem transforma a conversa em fechamento. Vendedores. Líder, para quem lidera e empresta visão. Gestores e líderes. Driver, quem escala com dados e operações. Operadores e especialistas em ferramentas. Mas falta algo a mais. Afinal, se todas as áreas de uma empresa tocam o cliente, então está na hora de sentarem juntas. O que queremos é conectar. Estou falando de trazer todo mundo. Farmer, quem cultiva processos e pessoas. Pós-vendas. Maker, quem cria ideias que viram marcas. Marketing. Pessoas viajam mais de 689 quilômetros para estar aqui. E eu consigo sentir a energia de vocês. Cada pessoa nesta sala carrega um propósito: aprender, crescer, compartilhar e transformar. E para isso, vamos trazer os maiores nomes do mercado. Dona Weber está aqui. Aaron Ross está aqui. As maiores Big Techs do mundo estão aqui. Não tem como fazer isso com palestras descartáveis ou mais um evento oba-oba. Nem queremos roda gigante ou um festival de música. O Zummit 25 vai muito além do conteúdo. A estrutura é projetada para ser intimista e potencializar o networking. Por que não? Florianópolis é a ilha onde inovação encontra a natureza. É o nosso Vale do Silício brasileiro, um polo que respira tecnologia e conecta empreendedores e criadores do país inteiro. Aqui, negócios e lazer se misturam. O networking continua na praia e, no final do dia, um pôr do sol de tirar o fôlego sela tudo o que você aprendeu. Você tem razão. Eu estava tão ocupada te mostrando o Zummit que esqueci de me apresentar. Meu nome é Zia, a inteligência artificial da Zoho. Foi criada para apoiar milhões de empresas em todo o mundo a trabalhar de forma mais inteligente e produtiva. Estamos! O Zummit 2025 está pronto para você. E você está pronto para ele.
Hoje é dia 15 de setembro. Estamos descansando ansiosamente, mas com a confiança de que tudo vai dar certo.
Estava falando da abertura, podia ser um input de faça o Zummit em 2025. E aí a Zia começa a trabalhar. E a gente mostra a Zia trabalhando.
Olhando aqui o nosso projects do Zummit, para ver se está tudo em ordem para o acontecimento do evento que é esperado esse ano, maior do que o do ano passado.
Florianópolis, bom dia! Que isso? Vou ficar aqui. Já? Florianópolis, bom dia. Agora sim, né? Não está tão cedo. Sejam bem-vindas, sejam bem-vindos ao nosso CRM Zummit 2025, terceira e maior edição do nosso evento. Eu estou imensamente feliz e um pouco chocado também, porque quem sabe faz ao vivo. Eu acabei de ver a nossa Zia, vou falar um pouco baixo, a nossa Zia conversando com vocês. Alguém quer fazer uma pergunta para a Zia? Aqui? Olha, temos um moicano. Vou até você. Ele escolheu ficar quase escondido, mas eu te vi. Bom dia, pode ficar de pé. Seu nome e de onde você vem?
Meu nome é Leandro, eu sou do Rio, carioca.
Vamos ver quem sabe faz ao vivo. Zia, escute aqui o Leandro.
Você pode me ajudar tirando dúvidas durante o evento?
Acabei de fazer um evento inteiro. E também estou rodando IA preditiva, análise de sentimentos e ajudando seu time de vendas a bater meta. Se eu parar agora, o funil de leads colapsa. E ninguém quer isso, né? Mas não se preocupe. Escaneando esse QR Code, você pode conversar com meu primo Zito, o seu assistente inteligente do CRM Zummit. Ele vai tirar todas as suas dúvidas, menos as amorosas. Ajudo em algo mais?
Olha. Palmas para Zia, palmas para o Zito e, claro, palmas para o Leandro. Ele disse que não ajuda em dúvidas amorosas, é isso? Foi isso, né? Que eu escutei bem? Pois bem, turma, eu me chamo Mark Tawil, sou estrategista de comunicação, LinkedIn Top Voice. Quem usa LinkedIn, levanta a mão. Ótimo. De verdade, só isso? Não, liga a luz aqui, produção. Quem usa o LinkedIn, levanta a mão. Ótimo. Quem me segue, estou brincando. Ó, eu me chamo Mark Itaú e eu estou imensamente feliz em estar aqui. Esse foi um evento preparado com muito carinho, com muito zelo, dá para perceber? Um palco de 30 metros, maravilhoso, super bem construído. Gente trabalhando muito para fazer isso acontecer. Então eu queria pedir, antes de tudo, uma salva de palmas para elas, para eles aqui. Que realmente é um dos eventos mais bonitos dos quais eu já participei. E é, sem dúvida nenhuma, o palco mais importante de vendas B2B da América Latina hoje. Aqui a gente não vai falar só de lead, turma. A gente vai falar de melhores conversas, de times que buscam valor e não só volume. A gente vai falar de relações que começam com contexto e não só com cliques. O funil B2B está mudando. E quem não muda com ele, vai ficar para trás. A inteligência artificial já transformou tudo. Transformou vocês, transformou a mim, transformou os meus filhos e, claro, transforma a forma como a gente prospecta, como a gente se conecta o tempo todo. Só que inteligência artificial sem estratégia é só automação. E CRM sem conversa é só banco de dados. Então aqui, durante o nosso evento, vocês todas e todos vão ouvir quem está provocando o mercado de verdade, quem está redefinindo a forma como se compra, mas sobretudo como se vende. Gente que entende que CRM é muito mais do que automação. CRM é uma cultura, CRM é governança, CRM é também crescimento com propósito. Então, se preparem para conhecer ideias que desafiam planilhas, insights que vão mexer de verdade no seu pipeline. E antes de começar, quem está aqui pode acessar, evidentemente, a nossa programação inteira pelo site crmzummit.com.br, pelo app da Zoho Brasil, ou no QR Code atrás do crachá de vocês. Aliás, atrás do crachá de vocês, clicando no QR Code ou fotografando, vocês vão ao Zito, que é o primo da Zia, que é o nosso assistente oficial do evento. Vocês podem perguntar o que vocês quiserem. Então, em vez de ficar só vendo planilha de agenda, vocês perguntam direto. Evento moderno é assim. Conteúdo, palestra, alimentação, organização, o Zito sabe tudo. Sobre fones de ouvido, vocês vão perceber que cada cadeira de vocês aqui tem um fone de ouvido. A gente vai ter esse palco dividido ao longo do dia. Como eu falei para vocês, o palco tem 30 metros. E aí ele vai ser preenchido pelos speakers ou main speakers de uma vez só, ou dividido em trilhas. Quando houver uma trilha, a gente chama de evento silencioso. Vai aparecer um canal aqui atrás e vocês podem sintonizar o canal. Não precisa mudar de lugar. Claro que ao longo do dia vocês podem, mas não precisa mudar. Basta sintonizar o canal e aí vocês vão poder ver quem vocês quiserem. O palco está pronto. Vocês estão prontas e prontos, sim ou não? Estou adorando isso. Então, para abrir o evento com tudo, eu queria chamar aqui uma pessoa que tem a energia da Zoho. Aliás, é mais do que a energia, tem o DNA de Zoho. Ele é Chief Strategy Officer da Zoho da América do Norte, fundador de múltiplas empresas, tech, energia, supply chain, cofundador da GT Nexus, referência global no setor. Com vocês, diretamente aqui no palco de CRM Zummit 2025, Vijay Sundaram. Nice to meet you.
Bom dia.
Vijay, do you speak Hindi?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And how do you say good morning in Hindi?
I can tell you in Tamil.
Huh?
I'll tell you in Tamil. Vanakkam. That is what
okay,
you say in Tamil.
please.
Welcome. Vanakkam.
Que é isso, gente? Vamos interagir. Todo mundo incorporando o Zito. How do you say?
Vanakkam.
Good morning.
Very good. Bom dia a tutti. I'm going to speak to you in English, and I hope you will forgive me for that. My name is Vijay Sundaram. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this fantastic event, CRM Zummit. Thank you very much for coming to this event today and for taking your time to listening to all of us. Thank you. Can you all hear me well? Okay. My name is Vijay Sundaram. I'm part of the global management team at Zoho Corporation, one of the primary vendors of CRM and other technologies that drive business. I'm absolutely delighted to be in Brazil, to be in Florianopolis, and to be with all of you today, to share with you some of my thoughts of what we are doing in this space and how that might allow you to see how things move forward into the future. I'm going to start with a quick introduction to my own company, Zoho. So part of my agenda is I will start with an introduction to the company. I will then spend a little bit of time discussing how we have seen the evolution of CRM as a technology and as a business capability. And then I will close with our point of view, coming back to how Zoho sees the world. So let me introduce ourselves. How many of you know something about Zoho? Put your hands up. Not enough people, so I think I have to tell you a little bit. Okay, so I have just a few slides, so I don't bore you about ourselves, but let me give you an introduction. So this is our company. We've been around for more than almost 3 decades. We've been in business in 150 countries around the world. We have about 18,000 employees across all of these countries. We have offices in dozens of countries. We have users across the world, about 120 million users. These are individuals, people like you and me, who use the products, our products, whether they pay for them or whether they are free. So we have 120 million users around the world. We also have customers who pay us, otherwise we wouldn't be in business. And we almost have 1 million customers across the world. So a customer is an organization that has 1 or more users. They could have 1 user. We have customers with 1 user. We also have customers with 25,000 users. So it's across the board, across the world. That's what we do. We are unusually, for a company of our size, we are private. We are not a public company. We are not listed on any stock exchange. And we've been private, and that is our intention. The reason we want to do that is because it allows us to be independent. It allows us to make long-term decisions in technology. While we are private, we are also very much publicly responsible. We are responsible to our employees, to many of our customers like you, and to the communities where we work. I want to tell you a little bit about us, and it's just a short sequence here. And I'm going to pick 3 values that are important to our company. The first one, of course, this being a CRM conference, is the customer focus. If we don't have customer focus, we can't do anything else. Because of customer focus, we have the second value, which is financial independence, and then we are able to do other things. So let me start with our customer focus. So Zoho has a very broad range of products, business software products. And this is also unusual in the industry because it's usually companies focus on one or two. So let me just cover the big areas we're in so I don't spend too much time. We solve 3 types of problems for businesses. The first one is to do with how businesses serve their customers. So businesses like you serve your customers, you are marketing to them, you're selling, you're managing their relationship, you're servicing them, you're trying to keep them, to retain them. So we have a whole bunch of software that allows you to acquire and manage your customer. The second piece is the employees. Most businesses value their employees as their most important asset. So you have to enable employees, create the tools to make them productive, communication tools, collaboration tools, bring them the right information at the time they need it. And that's that second set of capabilities that we enable. The last one, of course, is the operations of a business. Every business has to make sure it keeps running. So you manage finance, you manage inventory, you manage human resources, which is managing people, and all the other things that make a business operation and run. And that's the third set of capabilities. So if you see, we have a lot of products, but they're broadly in these categories. Today, of course, our focus is the first category, and the starship of what we do is our Zoho CRM. Just to close out the customer focus, part of what we think is we need to be where our customers are, so we're around the world. We're in many of these geographies. As you can see, we are in Brazil as well, and many, many countries around the world. Every year, this map gets busier and busier. Second, financial. We are a private company, but we are quite profitable. We have never taken any external capital, which is very unusual for a technology company. We don't have any external investors. We actually are not listed in a public stock exchange. The company has been internally funded for 30 years. So that allows us to spend less time with investors or analysts and more time with customers and our own employees. So it's a strategy that we have undertaken. But at the same time, we need to be financially a very viable and strong company. So I'm going to share with you some very high-level numbers of what we've done. So on the left here, you see the growth of users and annual growth over the last 5 years. So we've been growing users at 20%. And some of those users become customers, and we've been growing them at 24% over the last 5 years. It's an annual number. And the last column tells you how we've been growing revenue. Thanks to customers like you, and thanks to people like you who might consider our services in the future, we're able to build a healthy company. We're distributed across the world. So you can see on the left, our products and services are serving customers across the world. Roughly about half of our business comes from the Americas, all the Americas, North America, Latin America, and South America. The next biggest market is Europe, and of course we are in other parts of the world. If you look at most technology companies, we are more diversified than most other large technology companies. We have more revenue coming from different regions of the world. On the right-hand side, you can see that we serve a number of industries: finance, real estate, services, technology, retail, all kinds of businesses across the world. Last point I want to make, and then I'll stop talking about ourselves. So we focus on the customer, which allows us to be financially independent. It also allows us to do things more than just technology. We feel we have a social conscience and a social responsibility. We generally don't like to talk too much about this, so I'm just going to present 2 or 3 examples of what we do. So the first example on the left is what we call Zoho Schools of Learning. These, we basically pick children out of high school who usually don't have a chance to go to college. We train them at Zoho, and then we give them jobs. So we've been doing this for about 20 years, and we have about 1,700 kids that we've educated and who are now actually working at various technical roles within Zoho. So that's one example. The middle example is a focus on what we do in rural areas. Our company is headquartered in India, and we have a lot of offices in small villages and rural areas, because the problem with a large country like India, similar to Brazil, is people leave the small rural areas and move into the large cities, and there is no economy left in the local small cities and villages. So we are reinvesting in these regions, and we focus on things like education, health, and so on, and create jobs in those regions. The last example is what we call Marupadi. It's a program we started about 5 years ago to bring back women who had left the workforce, and maybe to raise kids, or maybe because of family obligations, to come back into the workforce, get trained, and have a job. So that's an example of something we've also started about 5 or 6 years ago. But this is a CRM conference, so let me get to talking about CRM, and I hope you appreciated the introduction to Zoho. So for the next section here, I'm going to talk about how this whole CRM technology has evolved over time. It's a point of view based on some of the facts of what I have seen in my own life over the last 20 or 25 or even 30 years. So let's start with this. If you go back around 30 years, say maybe or even more, 40 years, in the 80s, there was nothing like a CRM. You had a notion of contact tracking. So what was that? Was people had contacts, sales contacts, marketing contacts, typically on paper, and that was being digitized. So that was contact tracking, was the first form of what is now what we call CRM. And that evolved into something called SFA, or Salesforce Automation, where it started focusing on automating some of the business processes around the sales process. So I have a map that will explain this a little better, but I give you an overview here. And then a few years later, that evolved into something called customer relationship management, what we call CRM today. And there we are focused more on the deal, on the revenue, and things like that. Let me put this on a map for you. Before I do that, my voice is echoing in my ears. I hope you can all hear me well. Can you? Okay. Yeah, perfect. This is a map of how you can see the same picture. You can see the 4 or 5 decades here, starting from the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s, and of course, the current decade. So if we see how the capabilities evolved over this time, I talked about contact management. So it started with just digitizing what people used to keep on paper. And then there was a notion of database marketing. You keep these names, and you would literally pick these names out, and you would use direct mail, which is actually mail people, not email, physically mail people brochures, catalogs. You know, catalog companies started this way. So that was the early stage of CRM. So you move into the 90s. So actually it'll be useful to see the platforms at that time. So at that time, it was all on PCs, which means it was standalone. They didn't really have very good databases. They were standalone databases, typically single-user systems. So if you move to the 90s, you can see we've evolved from just database marketing to something more like the notion of a sales opportunity. So we now begin to track sales opportunities. We are forecasting sales. What has happened in the area of technology at that time? PCs have moved to client-server systems. Databases have moved to client-server databases. The systems have become a little bit more multi-user. Some of them need to connect with third-party systems like an ERP. So you have typically batch process-based connections, where you occasionally pull data from the from the ERP and bring it into the CRM. So that was the way things were in the 90s. So it moved from PCs to client-server systems. If you go further into the next decade, beginning of this century, the big change, of course, was the platform. Things moved to the cloud. And now all of a sudden that meant what we call the client was a thin client. Your UI was web-based. Your integrations were web-based. You could connect to multiple systems that were web-based. That was the platform. In terms of technology, you had moved now from managing just database to a sales process, and now to a sales execution process, the entire process of managing the sale. So you had capabilities like sales management, and it extended into activities beyond the sale. Customer service became part of this. You had, now all of a sudden you began to see the beginnings of mobile technology. You could access customer information on the go. If you look now to the 2010s, you're still in the cloud. Mobile technology has become more in the front. You have some CRMs that are mobile first. CRM technology itself has evolved into more of a measurement type of system. You're not just tracking process, you're bringing insights and measurement. So the focus is on analytics, the focus is on business intelligence, on the information that the sales leaders and marketing leaders need to know. And you also had vertical CRMs. CRMs focused on specific industries like healthcare or real estate or legal, things, industries like that. So that was 2010s. If you look at our current decade, we're still on the cloud, but now you have platforms that have evolved from classic CRM systems or CRM kind of user interfaces to bots, to agents, to chat-based interfaces, no longer the web-rich UIs. And the technology itself has moved towards agents, third-party technology that does work for you, so you have to do less of it. So you've seen agents, you've seen deep personalization, you've seen the application of AI into areas that allow you to predict the business, understand what is going to happen in the future. So that is the other part of how AI has come in to help the business, is to look to see what might happen in the future. While all this has been going on, if you see what generally has happened is that CRM has moved from a focus of process to a focus of a better customer experience. So it started by sales teams. It started actually from marketing, database marketing, sales teams, customer support, and service teams. So over these 4 decades, if you see, it's, oh, I think I have a repetitive slide, so there you go. So who did it serve over this period? Actually, it served the same set of people. It moved from sales to marketing, customer service. So even today, even though the capabilities have moved in so many dimensions, the people that it serves is still roughly people who are focusing on the customer experience within the organization. And that is where we feel things are going to change as we go into the future. So let's see, who does CRM need to serve going forward? Let's look at some business examples. Let's look at some models on business today and how they have been evolving. So here's an example. How many of you get food delivered to your house? Oh, a lot of hands. Everywhere I travel in the world, I see motorcycles with boxes behind them, right? And they're delivering food. This is the model across the world. It's here in Brazil, it's in India. I was in Lisboa a few months ago, and in London, and everywhere you see this food delivery system. It's completely changed the way people eat. So I guess we're all going to get much fatter too, but that's part of the modern world. And you can see this model seems so simple, but it's actually quite intricate. It involves the customer, you or me. We place the order. It goes to the company that actually runs this food delivery platform. So it could be somebody like an Uber Eats. And they actually work with a number of restaurants. They work with individuals or companies that are on the delivery side. They have to work with an organization that handles payment, and that is this entire food delivery platform. So if I were to summarize what happens here, you have independent parties who are working together. Different companies, different individuals, different areas of competence. You need tight coordination between all these parties. I'm sure when you place the order for your food, you want to eat it right then. 10 minutes is too long to wait, right? So customers have a very high expectation. Food delivery is a very high volume business, but there's very little scope for error because you need to get your food in maybe 20 minutes. So the expectations are very high. And this coordination has to be done across all of these different parties and entities. This kind of a business model, which is driven, let me go back, this kind of a model that is driven by the sales order. And this didn't exist before, where you combine so many different entities and so many different parties. So think of the kind of business software that needs to facilitate this model in the future. Here's a second example. This is similar to what we do as a software company. Think of this as a software sales platform. Everything is some sort of a sales platform. So in this case, you have a sales team. The sales team is engaged in the sales process with a customer. The sales process is extended. It involves a number of other parties in the company. So the salesperson is working with technical team, a technical engineering team, because they have to explain issues to the customer, they have to demonstrate capabilities to the customer, so they work with the technical team. They work with the marketing team, because the marketing team needs to help them show what other customers are doing with the product. What are some of the case studies? So the customer, the prospective customer, can see what else you have done. So the sales team is working with the marketing team. During the whole process, the sales team is also working with the contracting team, because there are contractual terms, there are payment terms. They're working with the legal team, because there are regulatory issues, there are compliance issues, there are privacy issues. So this team has to work together. And once the sale is done, you still have work to do. You have to implement the solution for a customer, so you're working with an implementation team, which may be part of your company, or it may be another company. You can see what I'm drawing to here. You require now a lot of internal coordination, sometimes external as well, because somebody else may be delivering the service. Compare this with the food delivery model. Very different business, similar issues. So you're dealing with, in this case, a very non-linear process. In the food delivery, it's very linear. You order the food, you get the restaurant, delivery comes home. Here, it's non-linear, because a legal interaction may take multiple steps. New requirements may come in, and new technical demonstrations have to be done later in a sales process. So things are non-linear, it's much more complex. Activity happens after the sale. In the food delivery case, after the sale, it's only the payment. Here, there is a service delivery after the sale. So this makes this platform even more complicated. Besides sales information, now you're sharing other information. So you need the notion of document sharing in the privacy of the different organizations. You need to manage a project, because now you're coordinating against multiple parties, and you are working a transaction, but it's more like a relationship. So think of the technology that can facilitate this today. A CRM has typically focused on a sales process. This is much different from what sales processes used to be, because you're coordinating all this activity. Does this make sense to you? Yeah? Okay. Let me take a third example. This is a construction project. So think of a construction project, residential or even commercial. It has the same kind of complexity. There's a client, there's a general contractor who is managing the entire project, who is dealing with other subcontractors. So the general contractor may be working with an architect. If they are doing a full service project, they're also working with suppliers, because they have to buy materials and contract for the materials. They're working with somebody who's executing the project. So that would be someone like a foreman or a team of people executing the project. They're working with regulatory agencies like the city or the government or the state to work through regulatory issues. And so you can see, once again, very similar type of things. Multi-party coordination. You're managing all kinds of documents from not just sales documents, legal documents, project planning, milestone-based documents, the kind of complexity that normally you do not see within the context of a typical CRM. You're dealing with intermediate goals because this is a long project. It's not just a simple sale. So you have different goals. You might have conditions for delivery of projects based on the success of earlier projects. So again, you can see the complexity of this type of a transaction and a platform that would be needed for this. So, this is where we see CRM starts to evolve. It's no longer just the process that moved from marketing to sales to customer enablement. Now it is a system that takes over the entire organization. So here's an example. It's the organization is doing a sale. It involves a team in sales, contracting, customer support, order fulfillment, onboarding, all kinds of teams, many of which may be within the company and some may be outside the company. And the role of the CRM is to coordinate all of this and bring it together. That is where we see the role of CRM going into the future. Now I know I'm in Brazil and this may feel a little bit abstract. So let me translate this into Brazilian. Okay, so it's in football, you have your central midfielder who plays the coordination role. So he's working with he has to coordinate the striker, the attacking and defending midfielder, the backs, the sweeper back, the wing back, and all the other players, and bring the team together. So it's a very similar role of coordinating activity across. Of course, here, your objective is to score a goal and not the sale. But I thought I would appeal to your sense of sports by picking this analogy. All right. So what do we need to do to make all of this happen? Let me touch on a few things. So the first part, let's start at the top. Customization. A CRM platform has fundamentally to become an organizational platform, which means it needs to be completely customizable to handle the business requirements and the workflow of a different non-sales organization. It has to work with the legal organization. It has to work with the finance organization. So it has to be completely customizable. Things like workflow, things like user interfaces, things like documents it handles, concept of milestones, concept of deliverables, all of those things need to be customizable. So that's the first thing. Moving around, orchestration. That is basically designing the kind of different workflows that need to come together. Remember, everything is still driven by the sale. So the sales process is central, but then the legal process, the marketing process, the fulfillment process, the warehousing process, all of that has to fit in, and that work has to be orchestrated into the CRM. User acceptance. The next two are really important. User acceptance. We've seen this in our organization too. The legal team has their own software. They don't want to use CRM. Why would they? In fact, they find it intimidating. It's too complicated. So that is where customization comes in. The CRM has to provide a workflow that is that hides all the complexity of a classic CRM and makes visible to the legal team only what they need to know. Makes it familiar for them. It allows the legal team to work within their own software, but engage with this team through a simplified workflow that's presented through the CRM. Otherwise, you will never get user acceptance. Many of you who've been around for some time will remember in the early days that the biggest problem with CRM was user acceptance. Salespeople did not want to use a CRM. They thought people were watching them. They thought it was too difficult, the process was too complicated. Just give me my notebook. I don't want to do all this stuff. I don't want to spend my time filling forms. I want to be selling. The same thing will happen with all these other teams. So that's why the user acceptance has to be simple, the work has to be orchestrated in a way that makes sense to the other teams, whether it's a legal team or a finance team. And it should be a light touch, which means people just need to know what's needed to participate in the system, but can still use their finance system. The finance team will still use their own system for their operations. The legal team will still use their own system. So this notion of the CRM should connect their information and processes into a CRM process without exposing complexity. Of course, the last part is value. If the organization does not see the value in integrating all these processes together, it won't happen. So you have to advocate this within your organization, and we, as a vendor or a provider of CRM, need to advocate this to our client organizations. Why this makes a difference to the entire customer fulfillment process, not just sales or sales operations. Remember, it's all focused around the better customer experience. So I'm going to take the last few slides just to talk about our approach to this. We've introduced something at Zoho called Zoho for Everyone, and that is exactly what we are trying to do. We are probably in the second generation now, but this is our vision, is to create that single system in an organization that drives the sales process, but includes all these entities, so you can develop a model that can look as dissimilar as food delivery, software sales, or construction management. So to accomplish this, I talked about all these capabilities on the left, like customization, work orchestration, and so on. So I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but these are some of the things that we have implemented in the products. So I'll pick a couple of examples. So take customization. There's a notion of templates. What would a legal template look like? Modules. There's a separate module for legal which hides all the complexity in the rest of the CRM. So that makes it more easily acceptable to the user, lowers the training costs. Take the second example, orchestration. There's a notion of somebody who can request to be part of the sales process. And so we orchestrate and create a role. So that someone could be, say, from a marketing team or from a finance team. So they will request a role into the CRM. And the CRM would orchestrate the kind of tasks and monitoring what kind of information needs to be shared. Clearly, we still have to follow privacy and security, so the finance team can only be exposed to this type of information. Similarly, the salespeople can only see this type of information from the finance team. So that's the second part, orchestration. user acceptance. A lot of this is going to be built on natural language, not just complicated interfaces. A lot of them are going to be pictorial interfaces as opposed to word-driven, so it makes it easier for people to adopt this. And there should be this clarity on value. It's because of bringing the entire organization together that you're able to execute the sale more effectively. You're able to avoid the kind of things that happen today, where during a sales process, if the salesperson wants to talk to a legal team or to a finance team, it moves out of the CRM system, and all of a sudden there's email they're tracking, or chats they're tracking, they're using WhatsApp or something else, and all the information is all over the place. And you've lost that ability to coordinate, orchestrate, or manage privacy and security. So this is our vision for where we want to go. I think it's tied with what we were talking about earlier, and we think this is the right evolution of CRM as a platform that drives the entire organization. Thank you, and I'm going to leave you with just 2 ideas. The first is to summarize this whole presentation. The first is CRM is now becoming a technology that will encompass the entire organization. And that becomes the single system that drives what we all try to do, which is to sell. And the second lesson I'll leave you with is next year is 2026. What happens in 2026? World Cup. We've been waiting for what, 24 years now? And I think you should all fire your Italian coach and use CRM for everyone to coordinate your team better. Thank you.